Hello everyone, so we talked about this before, and this is to do with, I suppose, what people call bin savagery. And some people might not understand what that means, but it's to do with the bottle return scheme. Now, as you know, you pay a deposit for every bottle you get in the shop. Either be a Lucasade, a 7-Up, whatever. You pay a deposit basically to recycle that, basically get a few cents back towards it. And of course, if people say, for example, on the street, walking the street, if it's going to work, going to school, whatever, they put it into a public bin, take, for example, the side of the road in Dublin City, in Cavan, wherever. And so people come along basically and tear the bins, and I've seen it myself in Cavan, that people literally tear the bins apart to get the can out, the one or two cans. They would leave everything lying after them for somebody else to go and clean up for them. It's not fair. And the Lord Mayor of Dublin has said it, and we know Dublin City Council have said it last year, that it cost about €500,000 last year to clean up after these people that just basically fucked the whole bin out into the street and leave it for the councilmen. And in some cases volunteers to have to go and clean up after these people. Now, straight away, some of these people are in desperate need. Like, I will say that, they're in desperate need because they only get a few cents for it. And, I've seen 2 or 3 people one time. These are people that have, have properties, etc. And they brought in 2 big bags of, bottles, etc. And only got about 30 something euro for 2 big, huge bags of bottles and stuff. They're only got about €35 for the 2 bags together. That was all. So you don't really make much. You get a few cents, and that's about it. But long story short, there's such an extent in this country to poverty, and especially because a lot of these people are non-nationals that are doing this. There's some Irish people that do it, don't get me wrong, but it just shows you how desperate some people are for the money, etc. Because the sheer economic hardships in the country, and I think everybody realises this, that it is tough on people, especially people who are already depoverished and in poverty, etc. It's tough on them. But of course, it's costing, as I say, Dublin City Council have said, it's costing about €1,000 a week, which might not sound a lot, but it's the 500,000. It could be $1 million soon, basically, a year, just on that alone. And then if you added every other local authority in the country, say for example, we added Cavan, Monaghan, Leitrim, Sligo, Donegal, if we added them all up together, you could have 3 or 4 million a year just in the country of Holland on cleaning up after these people that are tearing the bins apart. Now, in some cases, I've seen it in Dublin and in some places, not in Cavan, the new bins in Cavan have keys. But in some places around the country, some people have keys for the bins, and usually the councilmen, etc., would have the keys for it. The new ones in Cavan have keys, and they're very strict on who gets the keys. Only people who take the bins out that have the keys. But it's wonderful how some people got the keys. It's crazy. There's some women there, Roman women, etc. I don't know how they got the keys. Like in some cases, not in Cavan, but in Dublin in some cases. I've seen them doing it. I've seen videos online. They have keys to open them. I don't get how they got it. And there never was an explanation by Dublin City Council. I've seen a case in, I think it was Wicklow or Waterford, that somebody had a key to open the bins, which is insane because they're enclosed bins. They're not like the bins you can rummage through because they basically you have to basically use your foot to open them. But you need a key for it. That's all the better because that stops the bin rummaging. But as I say, somebody that works in waste management, etc., I've come across many times public bins in Cavan Town, in Beltow, but in other places in Cavan, that were basically just picked apart. What I mean by that, the bag and everything was taken out of it, because basically the bins that lift up, the old-fashioned bins, and basically would take the whole bin apart just to find one bottle, which is insane. And they wouldn't clean it up, they leave it on the side of the road, so it just shows they have no respect. And a lot of people too, they're in desperate need, they are in desperate need, especially when they're doing this. But it's a very sad state of affairs that people have to go to this extent. It is really, really sad, as I say, and especially because it's costing a huge amount on the Irish taxpayer to flip the bill for these people, etc., causing this mess. And of course, this question needs to be asked, what can you do for these people, of course, when it comes to getting them a job, etc., because we should be getting them good jobs for Irish people, of course. But we should be making sure they're looked after in terms of getting a good job, and you're not being able, not having to go rummaging through bins, etc. And of course, people that are here, not from this country, should be deported back home. We have no business. They have no business being here. Looking for handouts, etc. But what I'm trying to say is, it needs to be dealt with in terms of poverty, etc. Because there's a lot of people who are struggling, and let's be fair, they're struggling. They are really, really struggling. And some people have good jobs that are doing it. I've seen one incident, I think it was in Cork, that somebody had a good, decent job, but the rent was so much. It was about, I think, 600 or 700 a month, and they had a decent job, but then they were paying for their car and they were paying for the stuff, and they simply couldn't afford, and they had to go rummaging through bins for extra few bob for stuff, which is insane to say, but that's the modern Ireland for you. Now, to be totally honest, as I say, I know people who walk in, say, for example, football pitches, etc. I know one person who walks in the football pitch and he makes a good few bob out of it on the side. Um, he makes an insane amount of money. I think he said he made nearly 1,000 last year or something on the buckles, etc. Because he would take all of them because they would just basically go to the top. But he took about I don't know how many buckles, but he's saying he made about 1,000 euro, which was quite handy. I think it was on a community scheme. If I get me wrong, I think it was a community scheme. I'm not sure. It could have been just a GA and employment kind of thing. I don't know what it was. It might be just something like that, a farmer scheme. I think it could have been. But long story short, we made a bit of money out of that. But what I'm trying to say is, it shouldn't have to be this way. What I'm trying to say, it shouldn't have to be this way in this country. It shouldn't have to. And as I say, it's not fair on the councilmen. They were like, there used to be tons of councilmen, but nowadays there's not as many. And there's more work for them to do. Of course, the council never walk in batteries. No, my speaking from experience, etc. But long story short, it isn't fair that somebody has to go and pick up somebody else's mess that's just left after them. It isn't fair. It isn't right, and especially if members of the public have to do it, have to take minutes out of their day to do it for people that are only thinking about themselves. I know you have to think about yourself first and foremost. But I'm just saying, if I was in that situation, I would rather starve on the side of the road than go to that place, to be totally honest. I wouldn't rather starve. That's just speaking personally, but I understand, again, people have to survive and stuff. I understand that. I get that. But it just goes to show the sheer desperate state of this country. That people have to do this. It's insane. And just recently, actually, just I was speaking on this just recently, about 3 weeks ago, I was in Cowan down County Monaghan. There was an Irish fellow, and now I don't know what his story was, but he was going around collecting bottles. I was going to say something to him because you were putting his hand literally straight down the bin, and God knows what's in the bin. First of all, he could be a rat in the bottom of the bin for all you knew. That's what I'm saying. It was one of them bit old fashioned ones, so you could put your hand straight into it. He took out 2 bottles, etc. And I was watching him doing. He's an Irish fellow too. Now I don't know what his situation was. Going to ask him what his situation was, but he didn't look like the fellow that would want to have a conversation with, if that makes any sense. But he didn't look homeless. That's the thing. He looked like he wasn't. He was staying somewhere. I don't know where he was staying, but he clearly was staying somewhere because he wasn't shabbat looking. But it's quite insane. It's really, really quite insane, but thing to see. Because at the end of the day, it's like you went with no gloves or anything, and it's a bin that smells and it's full of flies and God knows what else is in it at the very bottom of it. And I've done that from experience in terms of you lifting out the bags of the bins, etc. There's nappies, there's awful stuff. I tell you, for experience, that's just wearing gloves, etc. It's awful stuff to feel it and stuff. So I can imagine if you went in with bare hands, etc. It's an awful thing. But yeah, no, I just wanted to let you know what about this, because we did talk about it before. And as I say, it is an awful lot of money. Now, unfortunately, the only way to really stop this is, as I said, what they have in Cavan Town, where you have to put your foot on it and you can only open it with a key. Now, there was an incident before, don't get me wrong, somebody put their phone in by mistake. And it took 2 or 3 hours for them to find somebody to get the key. Because I think it was on a Saturday. And nobody was working on the Saturday, so it took 3 hours or so for that woman to get her phone back, because she couldn't open the window because he needed a key, and there was no key. We had to find the person who had the key because there was a few keys. But that happened before, and that can happen. That's an accident, of course. That's nobody's fault. But what I'm trying to say is that's probably the best solution to this, is to have like a bin that you cannot open unless you have a key. And I think that's what we need to look at, because the old-fashioned bins are no good. The old-fashioned bins are no good nowadays for that. Especially when you have this going on, it's no good. That's the simple thing. But I do think the whole Baku return scheme in general too is a scam, to be done, because the government are taking huge amount of money that's not being claimed in taxes. It's insane. Anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe more and bye.